Misogyny, next time on Philosophy Talk.
And you cook and sew, make flowers grow.
Listen to Philosophy Talk today at noon on KSJE 90.9 FM, Farmington. KSJE is supported by San Juan Regional Medical Center, here to meet your urgent and emergent medical needs, whether they are COVID-19 related or not. Medical emergencies happen when you least expect them. Whether it's a stroke, heart attack, illness, or injury, San Juan Regional Medical Center's caregivers are here to provide care to you and your loved ones. Find out more online at sanjuanregional.com. Ten minutes past 8 o'clock. It is Tuesday morning, August the 18th. Good morning, everyone. I'm Scott Micklin, and thank you for tuning in to KSJE 90.9 FM over the air, of course, in San Juan County, 103.3 FM over the air in the Durango, Colorado area, and of course streaming everywhere from our website at ksje.com. Also, we're streaming video everywhere on the KSJE YouTube channel and on the KSJE Facebook page, so we welcome our viewers who are joining us live this morning. Coming up in the next few moments, our topic today, Aztec schools. As school gets back into session, we'll be speaking with Aztec School Superintendent Kirk Carpenter and Deputy Superintendent Tania Prokop. That's coming up in the next few moments right here on KSJE, so stay tuned for that. And later on this hour, we'll be checking in with Amber Francisco over at the Farmington Regional Animal Shelter. It's our weekly Adopt a Pet Tuesday segment when we show you some of the pets available for adoption each and every week. And one of the pets available, the Siamese cat you see on the screen right now, that is Moo Shy, who's available for adoption at the shelter this week. Mick Hess will be up next, Roving with the Arts, our weekday classical music program beginning at 9:06 this morning. Today, Mick is featuring music from Bach on the program, so that you'll be hearing later on this morning. And don't forget, of course, we invite you to connect with us on our other social media platforms in addition to Facebook and YouTube, like the KSJE Twitter accounts or KSJE on Instagram as well. Here's the weather forecast. Here we go. It's going to be sunny and hot for the next several days. Today, mostly sunny skies, 98 for a high this afternoon. Clear and 64 overnight. Sunshine on Wednesday and Thursday with 100 degrees possible. And overnight lows in the mid-60s. Sunny and 98 on Friday, and maybe a chance of a scattered shower or thunderstorm Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. But the high temperatures are still mid to upper 90s and overnight lows in the mid-60s. Let me introduce my guests who are joining us this morning. Again, from the Aztec School District, Superintendent Kirk Carpenter is joining us this morning from his office in Aztec. Mr. Carpenter, good morning.
Good morning, Scott.
Thank you for being here. Also, Tania Prokop is joining us as well through the miracle of Zoom. Good morning.
Morning, Scott.
Thank you for being with us, both of you. Great to see you. And, of course, here we go. School has resumed for Aztec schools. It is an online situation as of right now, and you've been back for a couple of days. Mr. Carpenter, give us an update on how things have been going over the last few days.
Well, we started last week. Some schools as early as Monday. Some had to delay that just because, getting technology rolled out, that type of thing. I mean, that's really what we used last week for. And so some schools are, last week already getting work back. And, I think most things are going well. There's always going to be, as I've said all along with this, there's going to be hurdles. There's going to be potholes. There's going to be everything you can imagine. And not just for us, I think throughout the county. And, I know there's some other schools that are starting this week. And with that being said, I want to wish all them the best of luck. And because everybody's starting off on a new venture, and this whole online learning is not going to be easy. But I think, like I said, I think it'll make us stronger. It's going to make our teachers stronger. But we also want to, say special prayers for those folks too, because they're going to be undergoing a lot of things and a lot of different pressures and stresses that they probably never faced in their careers. And we've said it before. Even the veteran teachers are going to feel like new teachers this year. I think I've mentioned that before. And that's the truth. So we feel like things are off to a fairly smooth start. We still have some technology issues we're trying to deal with, not having our technology come in like it was supposed to. But you know what? it's the Gumby rule in Aztec. We've said it before. We'll keep saying it. We have to be firm but flexible and just keep adjusting. And that's going to be the case.
Understood.
So it's going well so far, and we're just kind of watching what's happening with enrollment too, because this is still important to see what's happening with enrollment. And so that's another important issue that we are watching as far as who's enrolling, who's staying online, and making sure we're setting up those parameters for each of those groups.
Right. And you mentioned the technology, which I know has been very frustrating for you, Mr. Carpenter, and a lot of the staff and folks over in Aztec. So can we talk just a bit about that? I know the plan was to be able to purchase some newer laptops to be able to distribute to your students, right? So that everyone could have access to technology if they didn't have some already at home. And that order has kind of been delayed, and so you've been able to kind of pull together other machines from some of the district buildings to distribute to your students. Is that kind of how things stand right now?
That's how they stand. We've even gone to where we have desktop models, instead of just laptops, which are not most popular.
Right.
But, we're doing everything and anything. We are pulling every computer that if it's sitting by itself, somebody better go grab it, because we're doing everything we can to get technology out to all of our students, no matter what plan they're on. We've also encouraged families too, if they have their own devices, use them, and not because we don't want to be supportive of their needs, but because we have to be realistic about what we can and can't do. And so it's been a challenge. But again, as I've said many times, challenges are opportunities to find ways to do great things for kids and staff, and that's the way we're approaching it. That's the way we'll continue to approach it. But it's not going to be without snags. And so, I've been one to post things as an optimist, and I did that last week and said to everybody in our community and around our county, even to the state, that this is the time when we have to show a lot of grace for our teachers in our schools, patience, that we can't rush to a destination where we're going to be, that we're going to have to figure this out as we go. And in professional learning communities, those that do that, which are all the schools up here, one of the big mainstays is you learn by doing. And that's exactly what's going to happen with this. Nothing is going to be perfect. We want it to be, and we will strive for it to be. And that's not to let excuses get in the way of what we need to do, by no shape or form. But it's going to be tough, but we're going to make it.
Sure. And the other thing I know, technology-wise, Mr. Carpenter, that you'd mentioned to me was hotspots, and that is kind of a way for students to get online if maybe they don't have access to that, again, in their homes, to be able to submit assignments and get information and whatever for the lessons of the day. And that's another thing that you've been working on, right, you and your technology folks?
We have, and our technology folks, they've tried to turn over every rock in the country to try to find vendors, to try to find every avenue, and so I want to commend them too. When we think about all the people working hard, it's everybody from the bus drivers still delivering food and transportation, to our food service folks, the people in technology, hours and hours, and we want to commend our parents too, because we know they're going under some different stresses as well. And the hotspots is just one issue of technology, but we do have some digital deserts that exist in our district, and we're trying to find ways to remove that obstacle for students. And worst case scenario, in the event we can't do that, then there'll be other ways we can deliver instruction. But right now, we're not putting buses out with hotspots in certain areas. We are offering opportunities for people to go to certain places within the district, even if they have to go up into parking lots and work. But we're going to reevaluate that now that we have maybe the availability to get some more hotspots, because that's not something that we won't consider. It's taking some of our buses. You always worry about what may happen to buses when they sit out there, but possibly putting hotspots on them, and hopefully they can be taken care of. But we're just going to have to evaluate that again as we go, and then see how long we might have to do that, because we're going to have two groups. We're going to have groups that are going to be online at least 9 weeks. Those are the AMSD online students that have gone virtual totally, right. And then hybrid groups. It could be on that long or shorter. So we have to address the issue, and so we're still monitoring, and people are still deciding. They have basically until tomorrow to make that final decision for the total virtual or the hybrid model, because once they commit, they have to stay in one or the other model at least 9 weeks, and at Aztec High School it'll be for 18 weeks. because of the way we have to set up our classes up there. So there's just some decisions that have to be made by families as well. And so it's ongoing and changing.
Understood. My guest this morning from the Aztec School District, Superintendent Kirk Carpenter, is with us, also Deputy Superintendent Tania Prokop. And Tania Prokop, let me turn to you and ask about how teachers are faring with this new model of being online. Of course, they had a taste of it at the end of the last school year and have had kind of the summer to prepare and to get ready. And here we are back in the fall and in an all online situation, at least until after Labor Day, we feel. What are you hearing back from your principals and your teachers?
Well, Scott, that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. Our teachers spent the summer creating lessons in Google and using Google Classroom and creating these virtual lessons. So we're kind of trying to begin with the end in mind. This is how we ended the year. There's a strong possibility that we may begin the school year the same way. So let's use this time and try to create some better lessons. Let's try to improve. The time that it took over the summer to create this, especially for novices in technology, I'm one of them. I actually created all my HR trainings to go virtual this year and use the same platform that our teachers are using. So I kind of felt the same pains as they did, learning how to do this and pushing it out. And it was tough, but it turned out really well. And that's kind of what we're seeing in the classroom. So some of the lessons that got pushed out last week were obviously through this Google Classroom platform. And so teachers are starting to see how well that lesson that they created turned out, because now they actually have an audience. And they're still doing face-to-face or Zoom face-to-face. We're actually using, again, that Google platform to get those meetings. Google Meets is what we're using. And, it's working out as good as it can, and we're making adjustments as we have to. I can't thank the staff enough. If you won the lottery and you could actually just give them some kind of a token, that would be just fabulous, because it seems like just the words thank you, it's just not enough. And that goes out to everybody. That goes out to custodians who've been cleaning. That goes out to our food service who's been feeding kids the whole time and then adjusting to what that service looks like now. It's to our principals who are providing a lot of the professional development and driving the teachers and consoling the teachers as they're going through this new way of conducting business. And it's teachers themselves who are embracing it and getting these Google certifications. We've got staff sprinkled throughout the district at every site that have really embraced it and have gone these different certifications. We've got leaders in our schools that have gone through and done these different certifications. And they're teaching the adults in the district to help the educational process for our students. We did have some students come back into the classrooms last week through the orders that we get from the governor and from the public education department. There were 2 populations that we could actually start bringing back in with a very small ratio, and those are our preschool populations and some of our special education populations. And so we're kind of testing those waters out slowly about what that hybrid might look like. And our bus drivers are working new processes there, and our transportation director has done a great job trying to figure out all the different nuances. So Scott, when you ask me how it's going in the classroom, the answer is so much bigger than the classroom, because the classroom begins at the bus stop. The classroom extends out to lunches that are provided out at the different bus stops. So I think we're doing really great, considering. I worry that the staff maybe doesn't take care of themselves enough, because they are so giving and so adapting. And even working from home, you find yourself almost working all the time. So what's really important is that balance. So for staff to really step back and take good care of themselves, so then they can provide that quality instruction for their students.
I understand. It's a big picture, that's for sure. So Thank you very much. Mr. Carpenter, let me come back to you a little bit about what you mentioned a bit earlier on enrollments, and I know that's a number that, of course, you watch carefully and other folks in the district watch carefully because it provides funding and explains how much need you're going to have in different grades and things like that. And this year, of course, has been probably very difficult to predict what those numbers are going to be. What are you seeing? What are you learning about what's coming into central office?
Well, we look at it every week. We're not changing our practice there. What we're looking at is the number of students that are enrolled for what we're calling the hybrid model, which is
right.
the model of coming back hopefully in September. And then those students that have just absolutely said, no, we're doing online. And it's an interesting balance. We're still probably at, I would say, 32 to 35% of our population on the online, if I'm just looking at the rough estimate. And which may be a little bit higher than we originally thought it would be, but that's where we're at. And so we did provide some precedents as far as machines and some of that to those hybrid students, not in any way to play favorites, but we have to make sure that you prioritize. And so we did have to do that with some of our options as far as technology and that. However, all that being said, we're taking care of the needs. I mean, again, we're scraping every little thing that there is out there, but that's what we're seeing. And our total enrollment right now is about 2,200. Our projected was around 26, close to 26. So just rough estimates mean that there's about 380 students or 385, somewhere around there, that may be doing homeschool. So we're just going to have to watch those numbers and see if we can start narrowing that down. And those students are doing homeschool are not in our system. So there's going to have to be some legislative changes this year as far as how they do school counts, whether it's transportation, whether it's for our funding here, because this is what you're going to see. You're going to see a lot more homeschool students. We absolutely are seeing that. I mean, I can't tell you by thousands of percents of increases in homeschool students. So that's what we're seeing so far. But I think that as we continue to see some positive numbers, always the big elephant in the room is, what happens if something happens at a school? Well, we have procedures and things in place. We have our processes, and that's all you can do. We can't worry about what if. We have to expect that it might happen. And be prepared for it. You can't hope that it doesn't. Hope's not a strategy. So there's a lot of things that go with this, and we are seeing some more people opting to maybe think about the hybrid. And we'll just have to watch those numbers. If we can change our model of an A-B rotation and bring more kids in, we will. But a lot of that will depend on the number that did absolutely enroll for the hybrid model. And it varies from different schools. It does vary from different schools on who's opting to do what. But overall, definitely way down. If we were to take a toll on what that would cost our budget, it would cost it over $1 million. And that would be devastating to our students, our staff, as far as what we'd have to do. So there's absolutely going to have to be some things done legislatively across the state, because we're not an anomaly. This is happening in a lot of districts.
Right. And so far, no one has suggested that would be the number that you're funded on from this year, right? So
no. And even we could go 40 and 80th day, so it's October, and get into close to January, February. How much these numbers will change? Absolutely, we feel like they will change. Mm-hmm. They will shift. I would think that the AMSD online, again, which is a total virtual, that number will significantly decrease down the road. However, it may still hover around 20-25%, because I think families are just saying, not going to happen this year. And that brings its own challenges, but we'll wait and see. It's hard to predict. And so the numbers, and then the homeschool students, that will probably be something they opt to do for the full year because of that situation. We may see some variances in that, where some of those students come back and homeschool's not what they want to do. We want all of our students back. And we want them to have the confidence that we're doing everything we can to absolutely keep them safe. But there's no 100% guarantee. You just can't guarantee that. I wish we could. We're going to have cases. We've had cases, things happen where we have to put things in place. Everybody has, and we'll do that once it happens. So we'll watch it and just keep measuring it, and then we'll rely on some legislative changes, hopefully, to count for numbers for funding, because it's unprecedented, and we cannot use, just like Scott will say this, and last thing I'll say about this, we can't do the same things we've done in education right now with the way we're delivering instruction and all the way we're teaching. For that very reason, we can't expect legislatively or how we go forward to be the same either. And so there's going to have to be some big things happen, and this is going to be a very tough budget year. When I say this year, next year is going to be the toughest one we've probably had ever. So there's going to have to be some things done, and I think we're going to see some big things come out as far as how do we recover from this, at least to maintain everybody at a certain level so we can go forward for the benefit of the students first and foremost, for teachers and everybody else. Because education in New Mexico, we know where people like to say where it's ranked. I would argue some of that. However, we cannot afford to go backwards in any way, shape, or form. So there's some very strong pressures coming forward on our people in Santa Fe as well. And we're all going to have to work together to try to problem solve it.
Right. And Mr. Carpenter, you mentioned some of the challenges, of course, and you're following the state guidelines, of course. And so, everything is online until at least after Labor Day. But if we think positively and the schools are allowed to reopen following some of the other COVID-safe practices, you will start maybe seeing some staff and students returning to your school buildings. And that's where you mentioned that if there is someone who shows up sick or there is a positive case at Aztec schools, those are the policies, and you've already got procedures in place to deal with those types of situations, correct? And your staff would know how to react to that?
We do, and I'll probably let Ms. Prokop speak to that a little bit, because I know one thing Ms. Prokop has done for her entire career, she has done an incredible job of developing templates, developing things. We've worked with our EPO director, Jonathan Akery, our operations director, Mr. Banish, and tried to get ahead of this as much as possible. I think the biggest thing I would say, and then I'll let Ms. Prokop speak to this as well, because we have to deal with employees, that may not be able to come, not because they've been infected, but because of their situations at home. There's all those kinds of things. And then, there's a thing that if something happens at a school, what do? The first thing you don't do is panic. We cannot panic. What we do is we take it, we evaluate it, and then we will address it. Does that mean you have to shut down a wing of the school? It could. It all depends on the nature of all things. It's going to be case by case, and we'll have to be flexible on it. But we do have things in place and have full confidence that we'll be able to address it when it does happen. And the biggest thing is there's not one plan that fits all plans. There's not one plan that fits all situations. And there's not going to be one. That's impossible. So we just have to be flexible, maintain composure, because that's going to be important for our kids too. Again, as we face these unprecedented challenges, the thing we have to remember is we have such a great opportunity to model how we get through some of the darkest times we're dealing with, and that's going to take great strength and leadership. So I know Ms. Prokop probably has a few things to add about this, because she deals with a lot of this, and she's done an incredible job of dealing with even attorneys on these things. So I would like to have her touch on this.
Of course. Tania Prokop, please.
So the first thing that when you talk about this is to be proactive. And that's the school team, that's the community team, and that's the family team, about being proactive. So it really begins with washing your hands constantly. It begins with wearing a mask, with practicing social distancing, and prepping the students so that when they do come back into the school, that these are new learned behaviors. And so that's one thing that we can ask our families and our community to help with, and so with our staff as well. So it's beginning with that end in mind of those proactive measures. Cleaning. Our maintenance department and our director of operations have been investigating the best practices and what that looks like. And so that department's doing some really deep cleaning. But then it also falls on the teacher when the kids are back in the classroom to do some cleaning during the day of some high touch areas and what that looks like, and making sure that when the door's closed and nobody's watching, that we're still practicing those things of wearing a mask, washing hands constantly, practicing social distancing. And with kiddos, that's probably one of the toughest things, because they're going to be really excited to see their buddies, especially our younger kiddos. And that you see it on YouTube all the time, where the two little ones haven't seen each other for a while, and the first thing they want to do is run to each other and just, high five, hug. It's very innocent, but we have to remember that it's a new way, and we have to be careful with practicing, not practicing those things that just are innate sometimes.
Right.
So as Kirk talked about, it is a case by case, and sometimes that's what's really frustrating, is because we want things that if this, then that. It's not like that. And I've even reached out to my colleagues and saying, okay, let's run some scenarios. And it keeps coming up that it's a case by case kind of situation. And we have an individual in our district that has been trained in contact tracing, because if something does occur and somebody does test positive, then the first thing we want to do is be able to see what that ripple effect looks like, and how do we contact people and let them know that a positive has come out. So one of the first things that happens if somebody's exhibiting symptoms or possibly and just lets us know that, then the first thing we're going to do is we're going to ask them to self-quarantine. And a lot of this comes from our CDC, from our Department of Health, and from our public education department. It's not just Aztec schools. It's not just Farmington or Bloomfield or CCSD making things up. We're reaching out to the professionals and aligning practices with them. So the first thing that will happen is a quarantine. And then we need to kind of start some different processes with cleaning as we're waiting for the test to come back if that individual is a positive or not. But we can already start doing some things behind the scenes with some cleaning and starting to take a look at where was this individual. And it kind of depends what their role in the district is. We also have to be careful with some HIPAA violations, right? And as an individual, when we go to the doctor, one of the first things we do is we sign off on a lot of documents that outline our rights with our medical information. Well, as an employer and as a school with our students, we fall in line with those same things. So even when it does come out to notifications, we've got to be really careful with that. And so what community and families need to understand, it's not that we're withholding information, it's that we have to be very guarded on what information and how we let that information out is very important, because we all have privacy rights, and those are really important. So one of the big things that, again, I just want to stress is being proactive and preparing how we have to do business differently. And that starts at home and getting the kids ready for when they do come back. We're not going to be able to do things the same way. There might be X's to help the little ones kind of outline their space, right? And it goes back with hand washing and possibly the correct use of hand sanitizer when you can't get the soap in the water, and singing the happy birthday song a couple times. It's getting kids comfortable with wearing a mask. It's us as employees getting comfortable with wearing a mask. I was in the office yesterday and I left my office and totally forgot to put my mask on, because as a creature of habit, I'm just used to, if I got to go to the coffee machine, I just get up and go to the coffee machine. But it's putting that mask back on, leaving the comforts of my office, and keeping myself safe and others safe.
Right. That makes sense, and thank you for that explanation. And I think that's important for folks to realize is, again, as we hopefully plan, fingers crossed, for face-to-face learning after Labor Day. Mr. Carpenter, we just have a couple more minutes together this morning, but of course, knowing your background as a former coach, I got to ask you about school sports. And I know some sports, of course, have been postponed until the spring. Some other sports are taking place. Again, for the Aztec Tigers. What's your advice to your coaches, to your student athletes who are chomping at the bit to get back on the field, the court, the whatever, for school sports?
Yeah, I think probably embrace the journey, for one.
Right.
I think that's something I've been living by for many reasons. But that comes to mind, and it's hard. I know as they want to get back out there, we have to be careful for obvious reasons. When we're balancing not being able to bring some students back, and then you try to balance how do you get athletes back with coaches, it sends a mixed message. But I will tell you personally, if we can get our kids out and doing things, I think that's important. I think it's important for their social emotional well-being. I think it's important for their social well-being, as long as we're doing air fives and not real high fives, and abiding by the rules. It goes back to, I think, what Ms. Prokop said. Things are going to be different. Is it a new normal? I like to say it's an extreme normal. It's extreme normal because it's not going to last forever, but we're going to have to do it because this isn't going to be something that goes on forever. And so I think the biggest thing is just being patient, as hard as that is, and being optimistic that things will get to go forward. That is the plan. I want to commend, Sally Marcus with the NMAA, tremendous leader and tremendous advocate for kids. She is constantly, and last night I was texting back and forth with her, in fact. She is constantly trying to advocate in the right way, in no way taking seductive shortcuts for our athletes, with the governor's office, trying to make sure we can get kids back in the weight rooms, if it's in the weight rooms, in the right atmospheres, but that brings on a whole other cleaning thing. But doing things right, and maybe giving local control. To where you don't have high cases going on, or giving school districts the opportunity to do some of that within the right ways. We have public gyms open, why not school gyms? Can we do some of that within the 5-to-1 ratio? So I think it's just what I said, embrace the journey, know that people are doing everything they can, because I think that, to me, Scott, is a huge, and it's very, very important for our kids, not just athletics, but activities in general, to give some semblance of what they need socially. The social emotional part of this is very much important, just as important as the academics. And so how do we do that? That's one way. And so we're going to advocate for it, and hopefully things will continue on schedule as far as getting sports started, and absolutely will be different. We accept that. You accept it, move forward, get by that piece of it, and vent if you want to, but let's get by it and let's move forward, and hopefully get our kids participating a little bit more as we move forward, which is starting to happen a little bit. But we have to be patient and can't rush to a destination, as I said earlier today. But I think there's so many of those little nuggets that are so valuable. And again, how we model that as adults without getting frustrated and embrace all this for our kids is going to be key, because what we do is we teach academics, but the other big thing we do is teach life lessons, and we got great opportunity to do that.
Very true. Very true. Well, Mr. Carpenter, Tania Prokop, thank you both for joining me this morning. Always great to visit with both of you and give everyone an update on Aztec schools. Thank you both very, very much.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.
And thank you, Scott. We, again, appreciate you and all you do for not just us and letting us come on, but to the community as a whole, which you guys do to serve the community. So thank you.
You're very welcome. That's why we're here. Thank you both very much. My guests from Aztec Schools here with me on KSJE. I'll be back with more in just a moment, everyone. The time this morning, 8:42.
Hi, I'm Scott Micklin. As a longtime resident and advocate for San Juan County, I care deeply about this community, and I know you do too. Today, making a difference is easy. All you need to do is complete your 2020 census. The census is so important. It determines how funding is allocated for roads, public schools, nonprofits, and many other critical programs. It's only 10 questions. The deadline is nearing. Make sure you get counted and benefit San Juan County. Complete the census when you receive your invitation from the U.S. Census Bureau or visit 2020census.gov.